Hi, well, welcome to the second edition of Hacking Uncertainty. And I've got with me Rana Raouf and Caroline Martin. Welcome, ladies. How about a quick introduction, Rana?
My name is Rana. I'm a serial entrepreneur now after my second venture. I love uncertainty. That's why I'm here. And I have a PhD, now an MBA, which was an amazing opportunity. That's why I'm at Paris. Thank you so much, Paris, for hosting us today. It's a real pleasure.
Thank you, Rana. Caroline.
Yeah, hi Rana, hi Paris. I'm also an MBA student with Rana, and I've had a lot of experience, probably mostly unwillingly, with uncertainty. It just happened. This was pre-COVID, so I felt weirdly prepared for COVID when it happened. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here and to talk about this great topic.
Okay, great. Well, as you all know, Caroline and Rana are the winners of the Venture Day just recently. Their startups were, first place was Caroline's with DECLO, and second place was Rana with Stitch Easy. So we're going to talk a little bit about their entrepreneurial journey as well and their startups. But before that, we're going to get personal because a lot of people are going through a very difficult time right now, especially the Gen Zs. So we've got two millennials here who, believe it or not, they care. They care about how Gen Zs are, coping with this whole COVID thing. I care a lot too, and those of you that know me know that. But there's a lot more people out there that care than you think. Gen Zs out there. So let's start with you, Rana. Caroline, we'll be back to you in a few minutes. So Rana, you're from Egypt, right?
Yes, from Cairo, Egypt. The cities at Naples.
Beautiful place. I'm actually speaking tomorrow at Rise Up Egypt. Unfortunately, it's online, but it's still going to be a lot of fun. So tell me about, the Rana, that the young lady in Cairo, how your personal journey started to end up here in Madrid.
Wow, that was well, I'll let you judge. So I graduated from a German university in Cairo. It was a new project. I was the first to graduate from this university. So it was also a venture for me to decide to enter a university that no one entered it before, so I have no reviews. But the journey affected me so much. Like all the professors and people that I was able to meet in such an international environment, it inspired me to search for more, love life, and go on an adventure, look for postgrad everywhere around the world. So I actually, last year, before I graduated, I sent my CV and my applications to almost every country, but destiny brought me here to Spain. I'm a computer science graduate, but I joined a mechanical engineering lab, which is totally different. I was so passionate about artificial intelligence and the applications of it rather than theory, like how can we use technology and AI to change the world that we live to a better world. So I joined this automobile lab. So I was working with cars, wearing this blue suit. After being a programmer, I'm wearing a blue suit, going to a lab, and it was in Spain to join a master's in Spanish language. It was taught in Spanish. I didn't speak anything.
So where did you do your bachelor's?
Cairo, Egypt, but German University of Cairo. First graduated.
You did your bachelor's in computer science?
Yes.
And you didn't speak any Spanish?
Zero.
And you decided to come to Spain to do a master's? And leave everything behind. So what did your parents, what did your family, boyfriend, what was it like?
Well, that was a tough decision because I was in a relationship. My boyfriend, and we've been together for 6 years.
Wow,
my high school sweetheart. Yes. But I had to take this decision and jump into the unknown, because I felt I read these weak signals that we're not right for each other anymore. Like we grew apart, we grew very differently. And instead of deciding just to stay there and get married, live a normal life, I decided to break up with him, come here to Spain, discover the world, because that was what I wanted. That was my passion.
And what did your parents think?
My parents actually were so supportive. They knew that this is me, that's what I want.
So they didn't like him then, right?
They liked him, but maybe they were able to see that he was not the right person for me. Like, he's an amazing guy, but we just grew apart. We just grew differently.
Yeah.
He wanted a stable life, and that's what he got. And he's married now.
Can you imagine a stable life?
Exactly.
I mean, well, now in COVID,
I know.
a stable life, but it's like, I always think that, and I talk to the people about this. A lot of people tell me, oh, I hate stress in my life. But you know what? Unless you have a little bit of stress, you're not alive, right?
Yes, it would be so boring.
So boring. No. Okay, so you got to Spain. You didn't know any Spanish. So how was it?
Zero.
How were you doing a master's with no Spanish?
It was not easy. And back then, Gen Z, there was no smartphones. Sorry to tell you, I'm a bit older. So I had a very huge Nokia phone with a very basic dictionary. I used to go to class with this thing and translate anything that I see, take super intensive Spanish courses to catch up, make only Spanish friends, because that's how you learn a new language. And just, I don't know, keep on pushing. And surprisingly, I graduated the first top of my class in this master's. I cannot believe it.
I'm not surprised, because you were amongst the top in your class and my class too. But okay, so a lot of Gen Zs today are thinking right now, probably, where did you get the strength for this? Where's your drive come from? When you wake up in the morning, what is it that pushes you?
Love for life, wanting to achieve greatness, wanting to be out of the normal.
Love for life.
And just,
I love that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen the movie Blade Runner. It's one of my favorite movies, not the second edition, but the first one. What I love about that movie is the robots, the replicants. They end up loving life more than the humans.
I think I know this movie. Yes.
And they have an expiration date, and we don't. We don't know when we're going to go.
Yeah.
But it was amazing to see their love for life. And I think that, too many of us today, well, I'm the same as you, but I see too many people out here today, they don't realize how lucky they are to be alive. And we take it for granted.
Yeah, we take lots of things for granted. I think COVID proved this, that we took our life for granted. We couldn't have imagined a pandemic. So let's hold on.
So how did you manage uncertainty every day? Because that's a big question for young people today.
I would like to encourage them that it doesn't always look nice and sunny and everything is bright. There are days that it feels so hard, but there are other days that it feels much better. And my life as an entrepreneur as well, it goes like up and down, up and down. Some days I think I'm awesome. Some days I think that I'm taking wrong decisions. But taking baby steps every day, every morning to try to be a better version of yourself is how I do it. I don't know where I will be.
And never giving up.
Never giving up. You cannot give up. So, life is so awesome.
Now you are happily married with a child. How did that happen?
That was a very funny story. So I was here in Spain doing my master's and PhD, focusing on what I'm doing the crazy algorithm of artificial intelligence, not thinking of looking for any long-term relationship. And I met a guy who happened to be in your class back then, and i.e. IMBA alumni, 2011.
That just shows how old I am, right? I've been here forever.
Well, how old I am too. No?
So he was in my
No,
class.
no, no.
He was in my class.
He was in your class, and I wasn't looking for anything, but we met. And funny enough, he's Egyptian. And when we went back to Egypt, I found out that his youngest brother went to me to class in high school. I didn't even know this. It was like I went to Spain to meet just a brother of one of my colleagues. How small the world is. But it's destiny that finds you. And we fell in love. We saw that our ambition is very similar. And that's how I'm here now, as well as a startup, a venture lab winner, a top student, because of all the support from choosing the right partner. And that I wouldn't have got if I would have stayed in Egypt with my first boyfriend. That's for sure. So uncertainty is good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it helps you find like-minded people. You know, people
Yes,
who are
and
out
help
of their
you
comfort zone.
venture. Exactly. And go out and explore and find better opportunities. For me, uncertainty means opportunity. It doesn't mean fear. And I really hope that Gen Z would see the same things that I'm seeing. Don't fear it. Jump head first, and then you know what to do.
Yeah. Well, Rana, thank you for sharing your personal story. We're going to come back to you. I'm going to come back to you a little while after we talk to Caroline and her personal story to talk about your startup and the whole journey inside Venture Lab and how you managed uncertainty as an entrepreneur.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rana. Caroline.
Hi.
So, I don't know if you can beat that story for personal life uncertainty, but
I mean, goodness, that was such an emotional roller coaster, Rana. I was like, what happens next? I want to hear the next part of the story.
Okay, Caroline. So, at what age does your story of uncertainty start in your life?
Well, I think I was too young to remember, but I did start moving houses at the age and countries at the age of 2. And then somehow the number 2 stuck with me. And my family decided to keep moving countries every 2 years from the age of 2. So I'm very well traveled, mostly against my will. And it also meant moving schools, right? Because you're moving countries. So that was, it was a little bit unsettling, to say the least.
So, okay. So throughout your high school and school years, you were moving around.
I was, yeah. And then I eventually went to a boarding school that I stayed in, one for 3 years, one for 2, of course, sticking to the 2. But it was a lot of making new friends. And it becomes like a muscle. You just learn to meet people easily. So I am grateful for that. It's very helpful, for example, on my entrepreneurship journey. But it does also create a bit of maybe wariness and maybe, just kind of not having a sense of security. So it's like there are great things about all of this moving, and there are also downsides that if you can kind of prepare for maybe.
And because I mean, when you have so much uncertainty in your personal life, how was it reflected in your life? Were you very insecure as a child? Were you more, very worried about things?
That's such a good question, because my brother, my sister, and I are obviously like 3 completely different people, and we all processed it differently. I was definitely more prone to being quite upset with the world and angry. I had a very strong rebellious streak, which meant I got thrown out of 2 schools. And I had actually, I'd sworn off education forever. And then here I am doing an MBA. So my whole family is saying I'm not very consistent. But yeah, so for me, the way I didn't manage it was by being quite just upset. And I had a lot of resentment because it felt unfair. It felt like everything was happening to me and I was the victim. And it was a really hard kind of adult realization for me to come to the real kind of acknowledgement that you have to just accept the cards you were given and do the best you can with what you have, and stop blaming everyone else.
And tell me, the other day I interviewed a 15-year-old, a real Gen Z. Nice. And she told me that what the millennials and the baby boomers don't realize is that most Gen Zs feel that we don't care about them, that we tell them that we care, but we don't actually care. And they feel very alone out there with respect to us. Was that a little bit how you felt as a Gen Z when you were, under 22?
Totally. I was about to say, I wonder if that's an age thing more than a generational thing. I definitely felt so alone, and the age gap, between myself and my parents when I was a teenager versus now was completely different. Of course, the age gap hasn't changed, but our relationship has. And so I obviously I do understand, and I feel a lot of empathy for this idea that like no one's here to help. But first of all, there are peers, as in friends. That's a huge source of help and support. And the second one is actually asking for help is really usually generates results. I don't think it's ever happened in the history of planet Earth that someone asks for help and doesn't get it. You'd have to be truly horrendous not to actually receive help. So
I agree. And I think that's part of the problem, that Gen Zs today aren't asking enough.
Yeah.
Because they're very wrapped up in their own world. They've got this fear of missing out, FOMO. Have you heard about that one?
Yeah.
But you didn't have time for FOMO when you were young.
Yeah. Also, I was so lucky because I didn't have social media.
Yeah.
So
tell me, Caroline, what did you eventually find that brought like stability in your personal life? Because you've been in my class for 3 months, and I can tell you, you have been one of the most stable students that I have had. I mean, you show up to class every day. Your thoughts are like very clear. I never would have imagined that you had that sort of younger life. What did you find that brought you some stability?
Yeah, well, I would say, first of all, I resorted to, just partying a lot and kind of not addressing issues and just being at complete denial, traveling a lot as an adult. And then eventually that started to stop working pretty quickly, not eventually. And I kind of had to figure a way to really take care of myself. I had the feeling that I hadn't experienced, the sense of like loving care that maybe other people had. And for me, that was yoga. I went to a yoga studio every day. And I became completely hooked, completely addicted. I actually worked an extra job in the evenings just so I could pay for my fancy yoga membership, which is probably the most white privileged thing ever. But that was, I was working in a pub and serving people shots and beers in London, all that just so I could go to my yoga class in the morning. And I have to say, I think it really saved me. So, yeah.
Wow. Was this when you were working at that fancy magazine in Innovation? You were working at night?
Yeah, I was working at Hearst Magazines in a job creation. And actually, that's something that has been a common thread in my career. Every job I've done has been a job creation. So that's also a different type of uncertainty where you don't have a job description. And now I can't imagine working in a position where there's a job description, because I've never had to do that. But I was working there, and it was my first real job. It was an internship, pretty badly paid in the media industry. So yeah. And then Hearst was actually great because they allowed me to, kind of do any extracurricular activities I needed to, of course, outside of work hours, but they were already flexible with like working times. And again, this was basically 10 years ago. And it was because I asked, and, no one else had really asked, but I said, hey, I'm doing a yoga teacher training, which I eventually did, which meant I had to leave like an hour earlier. So I would arrive an hour earlier. And, they were of course, they were fine with that.
So do you still do yoga?
Yeah, I actually teach yoga on Zoom every week. I'm head of the IE Yoga Club, although I will say I've been not as active as I should be because my entrepreneurship journey has been taking up a lot of time and effort, but I'm definitely still wanting to make it work. And I also started a yoga class in Paris, which I did for 2 years. So I love teaching, and I'll go back to it full time at some point. But honestly, I missed the thrill of just working with other people, building things and seeing projects come to life and having arguments about stuff. And you don't get any of that in yoga. So I've got a few more years of work in me for sure.
And tell me, one thing we didn't talk about were relationships. How does one deal? Because I know a lot of Gen Zs, struggle with that. Now with COVID, before COVID, relationships, people didn't take them too seriously. Now I'm meeting a lot of Gen Zs, especially in my classes, that are like, they want like stable relationships.
Totally.
They need the security of a relationship now. How did you manage relationships during so much uncertainty in your youth?
That's an interesting question. I feel like this is going to sound so corny, but I do think the most important relationship is the relationship with oneself, and I was seeking stability outside, and obviously it failed. These poor guys that I was expecting to, make me feel safe and secure were like, what? I'm not going to do that. Like, I have my own life to sort out. So that was a bit of heartbreak along the way. And for example, like moving out of my apartment at, whatever, 2 a.m., putting all my stuff in trash bags and then moving into a youth hostel close to my work. That was definitely like a low point of uncertainty. So that's what happens if you put too much on an external relationship, and then suddenly I was literally like staying in a youth hostel in my own city. Like the people in the youth hostel were tourists who were visiting London, and they were like, how long are you here for? And I'm surrounded by all my possessions in trash bags. Like, oh my goodness. So now I feel like if I can find more stability within myself, then it helps my relationships a lot more. And I try not to put too much pressure, because if you can find that inner kind of sense of security, honestly, then you can have fun with people because you're not expecting them to save you or to take care of you, which inherently no one can do as well as you can do to yourself.
That's a very good point, Caroline. Yeah. Okay. Well, I appreciate you sharing so much of your personal life journey here in terms of uncertainty. Rana, you want to come back? Let's talk now. I want to talk to both of you about your projects. So I was able to work, I think, a lot more closely with Rana during Venture Lab because, well, we met every week, and I gotta admit that in the 9-week program, the first 6 weeks, we were lost, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Really? God, Rana, I have no idea. Your project was so put together. I was convinced you'd been doing this honestly for years.
No, it is just something that maybe we came up with like a couple of weeks back, but the journey was so interesting. Like we knew that there's a problem with SMEs. I've seen this working closely with the UNDP on a project for the Middle East and Africa region, and how they are struggling. And now with the pandemic, it's even worse. So we were trying to find like the right solution or even the right problem. Like you'd see a problem, but unless you dig deeper, you will not really know the cause of the problem or how to solve it. And we've been pivoting and pivoting. It was crazy. Like each time we would meet with Paris, we would pivot one more time. So each week we would tell him it's totally new idea. But I had a great chance to work with two entrepreneurs. We all three of us failed in startups before. And that's what was pushing us to find the exact problem and the right product market fit, or else because we know we can fail again and we didn't want this. And we kept on pushing. And I think Paris have seen our worst days during these weeks.
No, I mean,
I
there are no worse days. I think this is natural. And this is the beauty of entrepreneurship, is the ability to pivot continuously.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that it might take you a year to figure out who your client is and what problem you're trying to solve.
absolutely.
And
We have changed.
yours was a great example, because there was so much uncertainty going on. But what I loved about the team is never did they show up to a meeting saying, we're thinking of giving up.
Never, never. We were just throwing new ideas, trying to push, changing the customer persona, changing something, but pushing, still pushing. And we knew that we will find something. And at that point, when we found what we have presented in Venture Day, it was like a light bulb. Once we put the idea together, we started receiving amazing feedback, and it told us, yes, now we found it. This is real. People are willing to pay, put money, and that's it.
Investors too, a whole bunch of investors starting approaching them. Now, Caroline, for me,
Yes.
the experience with you, Caroline, was totally different, because when Caroline came to class, she was probably the only startup that had their act together totally from day one. They knew exactly what they were doing. They were already talking to clients. They even had clients wanting to pay.
Yeah.
How did you manage all this, Caroline?
Well, first of all, I'm a team, so there's three of us, and it's just like Rana was saying. I think the best thing that can come out of uncertainty is huddling together with other people. Facing it alone, just why would you? If you can avoid it, just find friends and face it together. So that was amazing, because that brought out everyone's strengths. And so, for example, we had Ross. His way of managing uncertainty is to be very action focused. So like, what do we need to do next, which kept us really focused. Robert is extremely positive, extremely optimistic. So we never, I'm the one who has a stronger tendency to be kind of down. And that just wouldn't really, it would kind of be like turned around into a positive. And then I think I'm just rigorous and want things to be, look good and present well and be good. So it worked out, but I will say I felt like there was a lot of uncertainty, because it's kind of like you were saying, Rana, every week you discover new things, and every week you're like, oh no, we've got to change. And every time we'd get feedback, we'd like, okay, do we take this feedback on? But if we do, then we have to change. So I think entrepreneurship is the ultimate exercise of uncertainty. It's everything you do, you're doing. It's the first time someone's doing it. So there's literally not only no path, but you're making the path and then walking down it. And then sometimes realizing like, oh wait, this path, doesn't work. There's a big tree. We have to turn back, take another path, make a new one. So yeah, I definitely didn't feel like everything was put together. So I think if you felt that way, Paris, that's amazing. But that's probably more my team or me just, wanting to present well.
The other thing I saw with you guys, Caroline, was you had so many successes in terms of meetings with potential clients, but it never got in your way, in the sense you guys never became arrogant or like, you were always like a little bit of paranoia all the time and anxiety, which is healthy.
That's so true, actually. And we are, all three of us, a bit paranoid. And I don't know if you have this, Rana, too, but it's like when so much has happened in your life, sometimes I'm kind of waiting for the penny to drop. But it feels like a healthy habit, If something good happens, I'm always still like, at any moment, this could go away. I could, someone says that something, they want to pay and then they might not actually sign. So we've got to have a backlog of people who are really willing to pay to feel secure. So again, one of the upsides of uncertainty is the amount of work you kind of, or the amount of security you create in times of uncertainty. Because when everything is secure, you don't need to work to make things secure. And then you're putting yourself at huge risk. You're putting your business in a really vulnerable position because you're not testing, what is the competition doing, or what is, what's the real problem that we're trying to solve. And I think that was what was so good on Knowledge Incubator, and I'm sure it's the same in Venture Lab, this idea that like you're really testing every aspect of the business in an uncertain environment so that when you're there, you actually have stability. So it's not about you arrive at something that's broken, you arrive at something that's actually pretty solid, which is really cool.
Yeah. Just so our viewers know, Caroline was in the Knowledge Incubator, which is very similar to Venture Lab. It's a 9-week program to accelerate your startup. And Rana was in the Venture Lab, which is also the 9-week program to accelerate your startup. So you guys did an amazing job. Caroline ended up winning in Venture Day against all those people. Did you think you were going to win, Caroline?
No, oh my goodness. I wish we had filmed ourselves, after we finished, and then the last pitch went, and then there was the deliberation. Really good strategy, by the way, to have musicians, Paris, because otherwise we would have, been so nervous, but at least that was entertaining. But we voted, as a group, like, who do we think will be first? And I'm not going to say who voted what, but one of our team didn't even put us in the top 3, which I was like, come on. And the other one put us in 3rd position, but we actually also all thought Stitch Easy was going to win. But one of us did say we would win. So we were kind of split. But definitely it still feels, unreal based on the amount of talent that was present. Just, based on how much work we know everyone put into it, but we also put in a lot of work, so we are very happy. Yeah.
And Rana, at what point, was there a point at which you thought we're going to be one of the winners here?
I think the moment we decided to collaborate, all the 3 of us, we said, we failed before. This time, if we're going to take Venture Lab, we have to be one of the winners. We're in it to win it. That's what we used to say. Of course, we had days like with your meetings saying, oh my God, what are we thinking of? We cannot get a right solution or the right product market fit. But then other days, that's why I was saying that the life of an entrepreneur is like this, up and down, changes even in the same day a couple of times. Sometimes you feel you're awesome, sometimes you feel you're going to fail. But this time, if I can say something interesting, it's a very interesting story that Aditya, my co-founder, and I, both our startups have failed due to local economic recessions. One in Egypt, in my case, and in his case, in India. So we mainly failed due to black swans. So this time we were putting plan B and plan C and plan D and just pushing with all what we can. So we can never fall again for a black swan. Not COVID, not another.
So yeah, now you both are about to graduate in a couple of weeks from IE Business School. You now are winners in Venture Lab, Knowledge Incubator. So Venture Day, you're both winners in Venture Day. So what's next? Are you looking for jobs? Are you sending out CVs, interviewing? What's the plan? I mean, because you know that next year is going to be rough, to be diplomatic. Next year is going to be really rough all over the world. So what's the plan, Caroline?
Sure. Well, first of all, I just want to, based on what Rana was saying about failure, one of the great things about uncertainty is also you don't get scared of failing because you get so used to it that you're like, oh, I'm here again, like at the bottom. Oh, well, I've been here before, so, it's not scary anymore. So honestly, the more you put yourself out there, the more security you're creating for yourself down the line, because you're less vulnerable to it happening the first time. And it's really important, anyone who's young and who has the opportunity to try things, please just go for it, because the more you try, the more you know what you can and can't do. And that's kind of the philosophy I'm taking now for, I guess, January 2021, because I am in France right now. And, in France, from this date forwards, we're officially closed for December. So I can't talk about work things for the end of 2020. But for 2021, yeah, I think I really want to just accept that whatever happens with DECLO will happen. We're pushing really, really hard to make sure that it works. But there are also a ton of factors, external or otherwise. As you said, Rana, you just never know. And if that happens, I'll be okay. I'll find a job. I'll start something else. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at it. But we're definitely trying to push it to launch the next version of the product and then get more investment.
This reminds me, we had a guy, Matthew, his name, he's still around. He's now a professor, mentor at IE, but he was in my class probably 8 years ago or something. And he used to talk. He had he's from France. He graduated and he talked at a lot of conferences because he did one startup and it failed. And he started another startup. And they would ask him in these conferences, don't you have fear? I mean, you're a graduate. You don't have a job. Your startups are failing. And he would get up and say, fear is what a soldier feels in Afghanistan, but not when you're an entrepreneur. You never feel fear because you can always get up. And he got up many times. He's done 4 startups by now and made some money. And he's a role model for so many of the entrepreneurs here at IE.
Yeah.
So Rana, what about you? What are you doing next?
We think that we have found a gem. And we are definitely pushing for it full time, all 3 of us. We're getting in a lot of interest from investors, and we're taking it to the next level. I would say, building on what you've just said, Paris, learning to stand up again after a failure is something that, as also Caroline was saying, it's an exercise, it's a muscle, it's something that makes you stronger every day. We all failed, but we went to IE afterwards. We just failed, came to IE, build up on our failure. So we won't fail again. So we would do it right the next time. And I think we have this muscle. And going back to our main topic, Gen Zs, that's how you can do it. That's how you can face uncertainty. Let yourself fail. There's nothing bad in it. Lots of amazing entrepreneurs have failed a lot before. But it is this ability to stand up again and rise up and do things and grow this thick skin is what will get you forward.
Yeah. We have a friend at IE, Ali Partovi. He's a very famous serial entrepreneur in Silicon Valley. And he says, failing is not a problem, but you need to fail fast.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's something that I learned in your class.
Hey, ladies. I mean, this has been amazing. We're going to wrap up right now. So I want just a 1-minute piece of advice for our audience. They've come to this program, hopefully to try to understand better how they can manage the uncertainty in their lives. They've heard an incredible story of how you have managed to do it. What's your last piece of advice, Caroline?
Yeah, I really think it's important to surround yourself with good people. And I think both Rana and I have spoken about our team, but the team isn't just the team of our entrepreneurship programs. For Rana, it's her family. For me, it's my family and friends, and friends, of course, for Rana too. So it's just finding the right people. I think that is a huge influence on, making sure that you're in a good space, and also focusing a lot, as much as possible, on self-care and making sure that you generate that own sense of security in your personal life, in your physical space. Just take care of yourself. There's this weird thing, I think, in our culture of, it's a bit shameful because we feel guilty to spend time on ourselves, but we shouldn't, because that's the only thing we can do. That's literally the most responsible adult thing we can do. It's like, if you input quality, the output is quality, always. So just really, that's the thing that's worked for me. And of course, reach out to your network, ask for help. People do help. I've asked for help a million times, and honestly, I've always received help. So if I'm here, today able to talk about this, it's because people along the way have been really kind. Of course, the example of Paris right here, but many people before Paris too. So thanks.
Thank you, Caroline. Rana?
I would say believe in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, no one will do. It has to start from inside of you. And trust me, when I was younger, I wouldn't have slightly imagined when I was your age that I'll be here now, that by this age I'll have a technical master's, a PhD, an MBA, and 2 startups. I wouldn't have thought that this would happen. But take baby steps. Wake up every morning, make it a better day, become a better version of yourself, and people will believe in you. And trust me, you will achieve way much more than what you dream of.
Thank you. Okay, so bottom line, if you're a Gen Z, ask for help, because more people out there care than you think. If you're a millennial, look at these 2 great millennial examples here. Life's too short to be a Friday person, right? You have to love Mondays. Do whatever it takes to do what you love. And if you're a baby boomer like me, although I'm a baby boomer, I'm a millennial trapped in the body of a baby boomer. If you're a baby boomer like me, do whatever you can to make life more fun. So surround yourself by millennials and Gen Zs. Yeah. All right, ladies, thank you so much for your time today. I don't think we have any questions, but I'm sure when we do, we'll reach out to you so that you can connect with a lot of people out there that probably want to know more about what you've been doing. And if you're interested in DECLO or Stitch Easy, watch the recording on YouTube of Venture Day 2020. So with that, have a great evening, and we look forward to seeing you all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paris.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.